Hello, my name is Chris and I'm a U-Haul hitch professional. If you're planning on towing a trailer with your Hyundai Accent, then you're going to need trailer wiring. It is required by the law. Now let's take a look at how we complete this install. You will need the following tools or supplies to complete this installation. Begin this installation with the trunk open and remove the floor covering. You can now remove a trim knockout on each side of the vehicle in order to access the taillight wiring. We're now going to remove the rear scuff panel for hiding the wiring. There are 2 trim clips, one on each side. Use your trim panel tool to pop it loose. Now use your trim panel tool to pry upward and release the clips from the vehicle body. We can now remove this cargo net tie down in order to hide the wires behind this trim. You can now pull the trim away from the post. This will give you access. If you would like, you can also remove another trim clip, but it is not necessary. We're gonna do it just for clarity. We can now test the vehicle to address functionality in order to install our universal wire harness. Take your trusty test light here, find the various functions of the vehicle, and write them down for installation. We will be tapping into 3 different wires, so here on the driver's side, I'm going to open up the rubber to give me more access to all 3 wires. We're now ready to begin installing the wire harness. We are going to install yellow, red, white, brown, and black here on the driver's side. So let's go ahead and pass all these wires behind the trim for now and pass them out the access location. You can now use the provided tap-ins to install the wiring harness. Insert your brown wire and place it onto your identified headlights or running lights. Use a pair of linesman's pliers to clamp the metal bar shut. And snap close the cover. Repeat with your red wire for the brake signal. And now your yellow wire onto your left turn signal. I like to tape these down to restrict their movement and potentially coming undone later. As you can see, there's nowhere to zip tie our green wire to. So we're gonna go ahead and stretch it to the passenger side, connect it, and then we will pull the slack to this side and then hide it behind the scuff panel later. You can now use the provided self-tapping screw to mount the ground wire to the vehicle's bare metal body. The farther back into the trim you can get, the more slack you will have to hide this converter box. Use a 1/4-inch bit driver to install the screw. We're now ready to connect the power wire. I'm gonna use the U-Haul exclusive Power Wire 1. It is OEM grade with some built-in protections. So for that reason, we will route it from the engine compartment backwards. But first, let's remove an underbody panel to gain access to the grommet. There are 6 fasteners, 3 are trim clips. You can use a flathead screwdriver to remove them. The other 3 are plastic nuts. You can use a 14mm socket and an extension and do this by hand. You will not need a ratchet. We will access a power point here in the fuse panel. Use a 10mm socket to remove this fastener. Cover your fuse holder with the provided cover and then insert the ring terminal onto the post and re-secure with the nut. Depress the butt connector and power wire down to lower the profile so you can return the fuse panel cover. We can now pass a fishing pole down the firewall in order to retrieve this end and bring it back up. Find your brake master cylinder where the hard metal brake lines will go down, and this is where you will find access. Be sure to pass the power wire under the brake master cylinder and try to hide it behind any existing components you can to use as zip tie points, and continue routing it until you have reached the fuse holder. And now connect the power wire to the fuse holder. You can now continue routing the power wire rearward. Follow any brake or vacuum lines and go over cross members and suspension parts and route it to the grommet here on the driver's side. Pass the power wire into the vehicle. Now find the power wire wherever it came through out of the trim, and we want to pull it snugly and zip tie it with 2 zip ties here so it does not fall out of the vehicle in the future. Now trim off some of the excess power wire and connect it with a butt connector. We will use a heat shrink butt connector, which is not provided with the kit. You can now use the double-sided sticky tape to hide the converter box behind the trim. You can now stretch the 4-flat connector into the trunk space and push the trim back into position and replace any fasteners we removed. You should now be able to hide the rest of this behind the scuff panel. Your 4-flat connector can now be accessed and stored here next to the spare tire. Place the retention strap over the 4-flat connector and use it to coil up and secure the wiring for future use. You can now return the underbody panel and the 6 fasteners. You can now insert a 10-amp fuse into the fuse holder. That concludes trailer wiring on your Hyundai Accent. Please remember to practice safe trailering, and we can't wait to see you out there. If you have any questions about the products seen in this video, or if you'd like to schedule an installation with your local U-Haul hitch professional, please visit us online at uhaulhitches.com. You can also download the U-Haul app using the link in the description for even more ways to manage your hitch and towing needs.